That's right.
What's going on, everybody? This is your boy Scotty by Nature TV, and as you can see, I got a whole village with me tonight. We're here for Mental Health Month, which is May, and we're here about all things mental health related. We'll be talking about our own experiences, our own traumas. We'll be talking about statistics and all sorts of things within the next 2 hours. As you can see, I have some of my good people up here. We have Contrary Canary in the building tonight. We have Chocolate Beauty 81 in the building. We have a Bondy Blue in the building. We have NikkiStar TV in the building. We have Yah Partiz in the building. We have Kempire in the building. We have Erica Dinero TV in the building. And of course, we have Layla in the building tonight as well. Okay. Um, I'm gonna say this before we start. I told them before we went live that I'm expecting, like I told them before, we can go as deep as they please. Whatever they want to discuss, they can. If there's some things that they don't want to discuss, that is fine. But we can dig as deeply as they want to. There may be some triggering things that some of us may talk about. It may not be as triggering to some. It may be triggering to others, but it's it can be helpful to somebody. So I guess that's it for me opening up. If anybody wants to start the conversation off. Can it doesn't matter who wants to.
I guess I'll be the first one to go then. um, so, so the thing that I want to talk about is going to be suicide, which is near and dear to me. Because from what was it? I was born in '86, so from 1996 until roughly 2001, I was very suicidal. So to paint the picture and to speed it up as quickly as I possibly can, my grandparents owned two apartment buildings, a basement first on the second floor, and pretty much everyone minus my aunt Jeanette lived here. So my uncle Kenny was next door on the second floor, my aunt Patricia on the first, my aunt Alfreda in the basement over here. My family was on the second floor, which is actually where I live now, which is funny. My grandparents were on the first floor, which is where my mother actually lives now. And in the basement was my aunt Alfreda's oldest son. So in 1995, my aunt Alfreda passed and my uncle Kenny passed within like 3 months of each other, which kind of messed things up because my first cousin is my aunt Alfreda's, baby, her last born. So I know he took that hard. Then we lost the only uncle that we had on this side of the family. The very next year is what really started the downfall because my grandfather passed away right before Thanksgiving. And I remember, well, actually, I remember these next two very vividly because I ran downstairs and it was a whole lot of commotion. I hear people saying, call 911. And I would laugh watching TV with someone forgetting the number to 911, and in that moment I totally spaced because I couldn't think of what the number was because I was just in shock where it's just like, okay, this is way too close to home. I have an idea of what's going on. I don't like this feeling, and there was some regret there.
Damn.
Oh,
She
You
just couldn't
froze.
find her husband. I mean,
You
they
froze,
for
Jarrell.
years. Uh,
Yarrell, you
am
have
I
froze
back?
for a second. Yeah, you
But
back now. We had missed some of
okay,
what you
what did I
said.
freeze? What did I freeze at?
You
Which part
stopped
did I
at
freeze?
you
I
weren't
think
comfortable with that.
You had said something about regret, about forgetting the number to 911 and having regret.
Okay. Yes. like there was some regret there because I was 9 going on 10. So at 9 years old, I'm bearing some regret. Like I could have stopped it had I remembered the number. Though as I got older, I realized that there's nothing that I could have done, and someone had actually already dialed 911. So there was that, and then a month later, right after Christmas, it was my grandmother. So I was upstairs. I remember it vividly. I believe it was WCW. I think it was Stampede that was on. And I hear knocking on the door. I end up going. It's my cousin. She's like, go next door, grab my child. I'm not understanding what's going on. I make my way slowly to the kitchen, and I just froze because I knew what it was. And it was just like, this is not happening. Like, I was like, we just had this happen a month ago. And here we go again. And I had the deepest connection with my grandmother, deeper than my mother, because my mother had went back to being a working mom. So I was mostly up under my grandmother. So now it's like the only person that I felt that really understood me is gone. So now it's just like, okay, I'm fractured. But then what happened after that really sent me into a tailspin because it's like my uncle is gone. So there's nobody on the second floor. My Aunt Alfreda's gone. There's nobody in the basement next door. And now everybody that was left began to move away. And I had just recently switched schools to be with my cousin whose mother passed. So now I'm in school. I was 10 at this point.
10? Okay.
So I done lost the only uncle on my mother's side, lost one of my aunts. We lost the pillars. I'm in a school by myself. Everyone has moved away. So literally it was just me, my mother, and my middle brother. And when our grandparents passed, no one looked and asked, were you okay? How are you feeling? So literally I just felt alone and isolated. And then also I have the type of relatives to where if you come to them with something like this, rather than extending a hand to help, they're on the phone talking and gossiping or belittling you, making you feel less than. And because I'm a male, okay, well now you weak and this is some B stuff and you a PUSSY and all this other stuff. So for 4 whole years, I literally carry that. And literally it'll just be moments where I'll open the medicine cabinet. I can just take all these pills right now. Or taking out the trash, I can just jump over the balcony right now. Just like little things where it's just like, I was so messed up because just like, I don't want to be here. No one understands me. No one understands how much pain I'm in. And then if I open up, I'm probably not going to be well received. And all I can say is, by the grace of God, I mean, I made it through. I'm still here. But what is crazy is all of this tipped in December 1996. My mother did not find out about this until 2014. My eldest brother didn't find out until 2016 at our father's funeral, and that spiraled into a whole lot of things of us getting into it that day. But it was after that everyone else pretty much knew about it. So, I mean, that is my story. I mean, that is something that I hold very dear. And part of me does wish I probably would have said something before, but honestly, I don't know if in that fragile, broken state that things would have panned out the way they probably should have. But regardless of it, it's not that that situation made me a stronger person. It's just I had to find ways to cope without having any coping mechanisms, without having the resources to really deal with it. And as I got older and I continued to go back and really dig into those emotions, I was able to get clarity, not have any more remorse, because there were times that there were bouts of anger. And I know that stemmed from those situations. But I've been able to deal with it to the point where I can comfortably talk about it. And to where I have more control over my emotions. And I think the biggest thing is when I start to see myself going down that road of being depressed and everything else, I know the triggers now. And I know like, okay, wait a minute, you're starting to go there. You're starting to go there. and I can kind of grab myself before I get too deep. So yeah, that's my story.
Since we're talking about childhood trauma or childhood issues with what we dealt with mental health, I want to share my story with you guys. For those of you who know who I am, for those of you who were on the other panel knew that I grew up in Jamaica, and I moved up here in the 80s. When I was young, I had experienced trauma dealing with kind of like the same thing with death. My father, I was very close to him. He died tragically in a car accident that I was supposed to be with him. So there was a lot uh, of that guilt that I didn't, I wasn't with my dad before he died. So there was a lot of I don't even know how to really explain it. But unfortunately for me, I was living in a country that didn't really offer therapy to children who dealt with death and really dealt with grieving. How the way that they really dealt with children who grieve from losing a parent is they just actually they focus on the adult and kind of forget about the child. And so I was a very rambunctious child. I was a very active child. I was a tomboy. My dad, I went everywhere with him. I was with him. I mean, I didn't develop a relationship with my mom until I got older, but my dad was my world. So when he died when I was 4, and nobody really understood the importance of like paying attention to the signs of like kids are having a hard time. And I was really one of those kids. I was having a very difficult time. um my dad, he died in a car accident, and the car crashed into a transformer. And the cars in Jamaica at that time didn't have the installation, so when the transformer dropped on the car, like if you try to get out the car, you were electrocuted. So my dad had like a very slow and traumatic death. My dad was a big man, a very over 6 feet tall, muscles, just a very muscular man. And he was burned to death, electrocuted to death, and he suffocated from smoke. So he died from all three. And so um Jamaica is a different country. They have open caskets even for people who died in that way. So the last image I have of my dad was nothing but skin. His arms were like the size of my hands, and my dad was a muscular man. I mean, his whole body was like the size of my arm. His lips was all the way to the top of like his gums. He had full lips. Like I get my full lips from my dad. So the last image I have of my dad was just not my dad. So I stopped talking. I stopped talking. I stopped communicating with the world. I just went on. It was just like I just went on the inside, and nobody was paying attention. Nobody was paying attention. Jamaicans don't believe in therapy, and I mean, it's most Black families don't believe in therapy, but they don't really have that type of help to offer a child. And so because I went on the inside and really wasn't coping very well and really dealing with the grief of losing my dad, people thought I had learning disabilities. I couldn't learn in school. I start cutting school at 4 years old. I was a toddler cutting school. Like it was crazy. I wasn't really talking like that. And then we moved to the United States, so it turned into like a culture shock. Not only am I dealing with the death of my dad, not nobody really saying, there's something wrong with this child. She needs help. She needs to talk to somebody. And now I'm dealing with the fact that I moved to another country, and I'm dealing with the anxiety of separation anxiety, being away from my dad, dealing with the grief, and then having separation from my country, and then go through bullying at the same time. All of this on a 6-year-old child. It was hard. It was hard. And I mean, I thank God for my ex. I met him when I was young because he started talking to me when I was young. The first two people I met when I came from the United States, my language was very limited because I wasn't talking. But my childhood best friend and my ex really would try to talk to me and talk to me, and they were actually the ones that broke me out of that shell to where I can start communicating again with the world. But they put all these things on me, artistic, uh, disabled, a whole bunch of things on me when I just needed help. And my mom didn't recognize it until I was 16. That's 12 years past the time that you should have dealt with my trauma. So I went from a child needing help to a teenager just like rejecting the whole concept of being therapy. I mean, I start talking again and start really communicating with the world when I was like 9 years old. But that it was just a very long time for them to figure out that I don't I had a lot of missed things because I wasn't really communicating in school, but that my mind is on a scholarly level. And I didn't find that out until later in life. But it's so crazy how much time was wasted on the fact that nobody could see and nobody can pinpoint what was wrong with me. And all I needed was therapy. And it wasn't until I became an adult and I said, you know what, I really do need help because I'm bringing all these traumas. I'm bringing all of this grief. I'm bringing all of this anger. I'm bringing all of this stuff with me to my adulthood. And I'm not able to cope with broken stuff well. I don't know how to deal with broken relationships, with friendships, and in my past relationships. It just really just left me dependent and reliant on people. But when I got the help, I really saw that all of this was tied into my childhood and me not getting help that I need. One thing that we can, a lot of people can say about what happens in this country. But one thing that I think that is really good, and I know that it would have been beneficial for me, is if I went through grief counseling. If I gotten the help, because there is a few things, a few counselors that specialize in the coping mechanism with dealing with grief, and specialize in children. I wish I had that because it would have saved me from a lot of things, but at the same time, it made me into the person that I am. So, for those of you who are dealing with grief, please, please, please seek out a grief counselor. Do not see a regular therapist. See a therapist that specializes with grief and dealing with the stages of going through grief. Um, and so that's my story.
So I'll go. Branching off what she said about grief and also just like about your childhood. So I feel like every black kid goes through like this time period where you're understanding your blackness in school, understanding the difference between white teachers and you as a black child, and how you may do something and a white kid does something and the reaction is different. So I feel like when I was growing up, I went from going to like a predominantly black school to going to a white school, and that was a culture shock and something to get used to, but I never really got used to it. I was there from like second grade to eighth grade. And then in the last year, we went through like 4 teachers because by the time we got there, the lady who was the eighth grade teacher didn't want to be the eighth grade teacher anymore. And we get this crazy lady who is the teacher now. And I mean, like throwing shit at us, like all kind of like abuse in this classroom. And it's so funny because I had already dealt with angry siblings, an angry father. I already knew how to handle that type of energy. So in the classroom, I kind of became a leader just because I understood how to handle people when they're losing their shit as a kid. So this is something I learned. So like when I hear Urel talk about losing people, I lost my grandfather at 6. Then what was that? Maybe like 4 years later, my grandmother died right after that. I had a grandfather that died maybe when I was like maybe 1 or 2. So I was constantly losing people throughout my whole life. And then Katrina happens. And I felt like I was basically just out here swimming in water, like just like not even there. I'm going to school, I'm working at the grocery store, like I'm doing all of these things, but I'm not there. I'm going home at night after work, after school, and taking NyQuil and going to sleep. Like my life was like that for a while after Katrina, because I was going through a bad breakup with the girl who I was with from my freshman year of high school, all up until, and that happened, my Katrina happened in 2005. That was my senior year of high school. So I'm going into the first few days of my senior year, all this excitement, and then this happens, and then it's taken away. We're in somebody else's house that is no longer happy that we have to stay there. So we got, our food dumped into a box and thrown out into the street. Like, it was so much shit that happened after Katrina, and then 5 years after Katrina, not even 5, 4 years, 2009, at the beginning of 2009, my dad dies. So all of this stuff, is happening, and I never stopped. I never took a beat. There was no counseling. There was no talking about any of this. You just keep going as if nothing is wrong. You just keep going, like moving from New Orleans to Zachary, Louisiana. I don't even think y'all understand what it's like to be. I mean, I'm sure some of y'all do, but growing up in a predominantly Black city full of culture, being proud of being Black, New Orleans is a very specific, special place. And when you move outside of that, it is the culture shock that you don't expect. Even growing up around white people, it is totally different than when you are like surrounded by them and there aren't enough Black people to offset it so you feel safe. So it was definitely the depression there. You know what I'm saying? So after my dad died, I was like in college at the time, still had to go and take finals the next week after my dad's funeral. So my life never gave me a chance to like slow down and pay attention or tap into my feelings. So I didn't realize I needed to go to counseling until after, probably right before I quit my job at the news station, which was also a traumatic experience within itself. Working in corporate America will do a number on your spirit. I tell you this, okay? That's why I don't care what nobody say. Y'all can say what y'all want to. It is its own act of violence towards Black people, our experience in these environments. Because I worked my ass off. I did everything they asked of me. I worked crazy hours. I got less sleep. I was in the middle of hurricanes. I almost got blown off of a fucking balcony. I've driven in water just so y'all can see what the water looked like all this type of shit. Like I put myself in harm's way for that job for almost a decade, 8 years of my life, for them to not only not give me what I was worth as far as time off, vacations, treatment, but then they asked me to get rid of YouTube, which was the thing I had created for myself and the thing that I had put all of my pain and all of my isms into, to be able to be myself in this space without somebody telling me to change, when my whole life I've been told to change and shift and be different. So it was like one of the hardest things I had to do, but I thank God, my ancestors, my Orishas, whoever surrounds me, I appreciate them because they set me up for that before it even happened. I was ready for it before it even happened. And I'm grateful because even after all of that hard work, I needed the time to go to therapy. I needed the time to talk to somebody about what I was going through. And I feel like I'm still in therapy now. I actually do, and it's, no advertisement for them or none, but I do BetterHelp. And you basically pay like $240 a month or some variant of that. You can change it however you want to, stop it whenever you want to. And they put you with a therapist, and I have a Black female, therapist that I talk to that helps me. And that's important for them to see you, and she really does help me work through things. And sometimes I swear to God, it's like working out. I don't be feeling like doing it. Like I was like, oh my God, I do not feel like going through this. But every time I talk to her after, I feel cleansed. Or how like somebody just didn't, wrung out a towel and now I can dry off or something like that. It's this crazy feeling of feeling relief after just being able to talk about how you feel. And I want people to understand that there's a difference between therapy and counseling and talking to your friends and your family. Please don't let your family, you could talk to me. No, I can't. No, I can't. No, I won't. So, if it's not, better help or something along those lines, I would really impress on every person. I don't care whether you have been through something or not, to just talk to people about where you are, because we go through life in a way, especially Black people, where we don't stop to check in on ourselves and see how we're feeling and what's going on with us, because the world doesn't really give us space to do that. Everything is on somebody else's time. I mean, we were even talking about how as Black people, we move out of white people's way innately. We don't even realize we doing it, and we kind of like moving, trying not to take up too much space. It's so many things we have to work through as Black people. So I think we all need to like talk to somebody and get help as much as we possibly can. So yeah.
Okay, I guess I'll go next. Okay, so as far as I'm concerned, I think I have experienced depression, if not most of my life, probably all my life. I've always been placed in certain positions that it affected my life in many ways and probably affects the way that I handle things or deal with things as an adult. And I would say the first traumatic experience that I've ever had was at the age of 4, and people may not even believe me, but my memory is really good, and I remember a lot of things. So I'm guessing I remember this at the age of 4 because it was very traumatic. When I was 4 years old, a man broke into the apartment that my mom had. It was my dad was no longer in a relationship with my mom, so my mother was single, living by herself with me and my sister. Um, this happened in 1993. Some man um, broke into our home, jumped through a window, and tried to sexually assault my mom in my presence at the age of 4 years old.
Wow.
Um, when I say to people that I have always been Superman for everybody, it started at the age of 4. I had to be Superman for my mother. All I knew was that I woke up and I heard my mother screaming. And it was dark, so I couldn't see. He had on a mask, and to this day, I don't even know how he looks. He had on a mask, and he had something on his arm, and his arms was flapping, and I saw them struggling in the dark. They were struggling, like he was slapping my mom, pushing her down, and me only being 4 years old, I didn't know what else to do besides defend her. So I think I jumped on his back, and I was hitting him in his back, and he pushed me on the bed and still tried to proceed in attacking my mom, but she opened her window and yelled to the top of her lungs, "Help me, help me." So when she did that, I remember him walking into the kitchen and I heard him say that he was gonna kill somebody. I didn't know if it was gonna be me or my mother, but he went into the cabinet and got one of her knives out of the cabinet. But when he heard someone coming up the steps, he hopped out of that same window that he jumped through, and then he ran away. And I know that during the whole struggle, I tried to turn the light on, but my mother yelled and said, "Don't turn the light on." She didn't want to see how he looked. So that was very traumatic to know that a man was trying to rape your mother in front of you when you're only 4 years old. And being that he had on a mask and it was dark and his arms was flapping like this, that particular situation created a fear of mine that people didn't understand because I was so young. I was terrified of black butterflies. I hated going outside. Whenever I would see a black butterfly, I would scream to the top of my lungs. I would cry. I would do this. I would do this. If you had a book and it had a black butterfly in it, I would get terrified. And my mother was like, she remembered the situation and she was like, that's what really kicked off my fear of butterflies at the time when I was young because of that particular situation. The way he flapped his arms was like a butterfly and it was dark. So, when you see it, as a 4 year old, I see a black butterfly, I get terrified. So that began like a long, long thing where I was pretty much afraid of a lot of things. So that was the first traumatic experience that I had. Then you go into your mother meeting this man at the same age, and he's physically abusing her. I've seen bloodshed. I've seen him try to bury my mother's face in the snow. I've seen him um, running. She ran outside naked to get away from him. He was just that abusive. Um, Not only was I dealing with a bully in the house, but I was dealing with bullies at school as well. Um, I would go to school, and kids are very cruel. They don't really realize the things that they say could really affect you for the rest of your life. And so, you know what I'm saying? It started as a kid with the you're a faggot, you're gay, you this, you're that. And I didn't understand why the kids just did not like me. And for a long time, I was a loner. I was pretty much an outcast. I was by myself for most of my childhood. Even the kids that I thought were my friends would tag along with the other people and do the same thing that they were doing to me. And they were supposed to be my friends. When you're kids, you want friends really, really bad. So you'll accept and deal with anything to have them around you. But
Child,
then
not
as I
just
got to
kids.
be, yeah, adults too, adults too. So as I got older, the bullying went from typical verbal situation, and I talked about this on Bondy's channel once before when we had like this discussion. I don't know what we were talking about, but we were talking about something, and it went from being verbal to physical to lightweight sexual in the sense the same guys that would bully me would also touch me in places that they weren't supposed to touch me in. Like it'll be little situations where I could go to the bathroom or something like that, and I'm in a urinal, and the same guy that just terrorized me would find me by myself and start humping me from behind while I'm minding my business. Or if I'm sitting down, I remember sitting down one time listening to because this was back in the gap, so I had like a Walkman listening to my music, and the music was always my getaway from things. I was listening to some music, and I was sitting in the gym one day, and some guy that would terrorize me all the time took my head and did me like this while he was standing in front of me as if I was giving him fellatio, and he did it in front of everybody.
Jesus.
Or it was another situation where a guy was picking on me all day. He was, how people pass notes in school. Like they passed me this note and I opened it and it wasn't even a note. It was fucking mucus that he had sneezed into a piece of paper and told everybody to send it to me. And then the same exact day, he had been bothering me all day. He was
You
rubbing
fought him,
on
right?
me. I fought him that day. I
Okay,
fought him
thank you.
that day.
I needed this to
Yeah.
have a happy ending. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yes, I did fight him that day, but he was rubbing me and touching me and doing all sorts of things to me that day, and I begged him to leave me alone. And people thought it was funny. They laughed at me. They said, "Oh, he likes it anyway. He ain't nothing but a faggot anyway. He likes this anyway. It's nothing that blah blah blah." And he just wouldn't leave me alone. So one day, so the same day, he just would not stop. And I'm like, "Leave me alone." And it's like when I begged him to stop, it made him want to do it even more. And I don't know. The next thing I know, my leg was in the air. His nose was bleeding and they had to send him away. They had to send him down to clean him up because I kicked him in the nose and fought him because he wouldn't leave me alone. You know what I mean? So it's like being that I was the oldest of my siblings, I was always asked to um, look after my younger sister, but she was more of a fighter than I was. So I feel as though at that time, how exactly could I, defend someone else when I barely have the means to defend myself? I'm still trying to learn how to defend myself. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like I dealt with that. Then you're dealing with an abusive stepfather, and then you know you still have these memories of a man trying to rape your mother in front of you at the age of 4 years old. So when I say I've always dealt with some type of trauma and stuff like that in my life, I have. I have been suicidal as well. When I was bullied in school, I was suicidal then. I was suicidal in high school. I was suicidal about 2 years ago. We had lost our home. We had become homeless, and it was too much for me to take. And I felt as though I didn't do the best. I knew I did the best that I could, but I felt that I failed my family because my mother couldn't work because of her surgery and stuff like that. And the bills that I was paying weren't my bills; they were my mom's bills. So I had to try to do the best I could. But because we lost everything, that sent me to another place. It sent me to suicide, and I did attempt it, but it just I guess God had other plans for me. So when people see me, they don't even know that I've dealt with all those things in my life. I've dealt with so many things in my life, and all of that stuff. Like I've seen a therapist. There are things that I've talked to a therapist about, but I will say some things are still triggers. Even when we talked about the OG situation, that was a trigger for me because I remember being called ugly and being called this and being called that. Like any type of bullying thing, and people try to downplay it, it just triggers me to this day. But I never went to therapy about my bullying. I went to therapy for the things that was going on in my life currently, but I never would talk about the past. And I think that when I do go back to see my therapist, I may need to delve deeper into my past and all of that stuff. Sometimes, and just to close my story out, I know that people who watch me sometimes they think I can be a bit defensive sometimes or whatever, but that's my mechanism. Like sometimes I can take things the wrong way and they don't really mean it that way, but because I'm used to people being so negative towards me, I'm always ready to give them back the negative energy every time because I'm so used to people giving it me. But sometimes I may not be right about that. Sometimes people may not be on that type of time trying to be negative towards me, but because I'm so used to that, that's why I give it. But I'm learning not to do that. So that is my story with this. So yeah, this.
I love the fact that you guys are sharing such deep and personal stories because I know a lot of people in the comments are feeling healing from it. And I think that's why it's important, especially people of color, to share their stories. And what I want to share, like there are a ton of things that we could share from growing up Black in America or around the world, never mind. But one of the biggest things that started my spiritual journey, my mental health journey, was the journey from grammar school to high school, because high school was such a traumatic time for me. And I didn't realize through the pandemic how I didn't feel protected, especially in high school, from the adults that were supposed to protect me. And I didn't have that realization until literally during the pandemic, during the social injustice and everything that was going on. But in high school was the time that I became more spiritual. Mind you, I went to Catholic school, so I was very religious, but my spirituality started in high school. And I feel like my spirituality helped with my mental health journey. And I've never gone to therapy, but I've always been open to it. I've always been an advocate for it. I even majored in it in college. So I love the fact, especially now, it's crazy to me that it's taken this long for us to be talking about this so openly, especially in our community. But I'm glad that we are. And that's why when Scotty said this, that he wanted to do this panel with us, I said, we need to. Even the other day, we were talking about on my channel about mental health. And I didn't realize how many people needed that conversation, because I can't tell you the amount of comments of people talking, oh yes, we really need, look, I know a lot of us talk about what's going on in celebrity news and gossip and things like that, but it was nice for us to sort of like throw this in there because people need it. People need healing. And as I said before, part of my journey from grammar school to high school was traumatic, and it was a bumpy road. And thankfully, I did have some support from grammar school, my grammar school teachers. That's why, to this day, I love a teacher. I don't, you know, especially the good ones, because we know there are some bad ones out there, but there are a lot of good ones. There are a lot of really good ones that held me up during that time. But it was also my spirituality. And like I said, I went to Catholic school. You think that would be the most spiritual, but you already know it's organized religion. But with that being said, that was when I became so spiritual, reading about spirituality, meditating and praying and delving into other religions, you know, and what they think about mental health and how to be a better person and how to get over the traumas. Because like I said, I didn't even know I had a trauma from high school. I literally broke down in tears making a video talking about this. And I was like, oh my God, I did not feel protected. But thankfully, I made it through. And I think part of the reason why I made it through was because I had started that spiritual journey. I had started looking a little bit deeper, not because someone told me to, because I was really forced to. I needed to find something. And I'm so thankful. And even this conversation that we're having and hearing other people talk about the traumas that they went through and how they got over it and how they're still going, you know, getting over it is healing for me. And I see a lot of people in the comments saying the same thing. So thank you.
Well, I wanted to add something. And it's like a couple of, I guess, small stories wrapped into one. But I'll give you the bottom line up front, and it's just we need to do more talking and kind of hugging rather than being very physical with each other. So one of them is me and my middle brother, because we actually grew up together. He would terrorize me growing up. It got to a point where I was his slave in the house. He didn't do his chores, I did his chores. If I didn't do his chores, he would beat my ass. It was one time he just put on some boxer gloves and just started wheeling on me for no reason. Like just all type of different things. And this even went through a lot of high school. And before going off to the military, he and I, we sat down and we had a conversation. And we talked about this issue. And I didn't even think we would ever have it. And in us talking about him, I was like, why did you do it? He was like, well, I was trying to make you stronger. And I'm just like, one, that's a BS kind of statement. But I'm like, you do realize you made me hate you. Mm-hmm. And if I wasn't at a place in my life to where I could try to move past it, I wouldn't even deal with you. And I asked him, I'm like, well, but why did you do it? And he revealed our eldest brother did it to him. I don't think it was the severity that I got dealt, the hand that I got dealt. But he was like, well, he did it to me. And I was like, did you like it when he did it to you? He was like, no. I'm like, so if you didn't like that he was torturing you, you had an opportunity to break this chain. You had an opportunity to be the avenue for change, but you didn't do it. So why would you do it to me? If you didn't like it done to you, why did you do it to me? And I have a half brother, and I'm only saying it for the sake of conversation, but I don't call him a half brother. But I told him, never physically.
I missed it. I don't know.
Am I back?
You're back.
Can you guys see me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm mad at your mama though. Where was your mama?
Okay.
Where was your mama when all this was going on? Because I'm getting.
She was there. She was working. She knew. But because I was always considered a problematic child because I always spoke my mind, it was one of those where a lot of things were glossed. Yeah. Pretty much. It was allowed to happen. But this is going to lead to something else though. But when we finally hashed it out, he realized that, you know what, I was wrong for that. And I even told him, like, I forgive you. I can't say that I'm fully over it. It's going to take time for this to happen, because right now it's forever going to be right here. It'll slowly move its way back. But if you ever do something that reminds me of what happened, it's going to be right back here. So we were able to move past it. And one thing that I've learned in recent years is there's trauma that he has, because there has to be something in you that makes you want to physically lash out at somebody else. Like there's something deep inside of you that you probably haven't dealt with, which is why I said that I was happy that I was able to get to a point where I was able to reach back and really deal with these issues. And even within in the construct that is my family, one thing that I'm glad that doesn't happen anymore, but it was so disgusting, is the men, quotations, had this thing called the circle. And what this is they would take the adolescent children who were with single mothers, arch cousins. If they acted out, they will put them in the middle of a circle of grown, adult, fully matured, physically matured men, and they will take turns physically beating that boy's, just beating him physically.
What in the gang life was going on?
I can't even tell you. But it was something that was...
That's abuse. Just so we're clear, people in the comments, that's abuse. So if you're doing that shit, you should go to jail.
Yeah.
Very much so. But it was, and I had a conversation with my middle brother's wife about this the other day, where it's like the fact that they feel so comfortable doing it lets me know there's trauma that they haven't dealt with it. And rather than seeking the help and dealing with it, is manifesting itself in this form of wanting to physically lash out at someone. And then the gag truly is, you're doing this because there are our cousins who are single mothers that don't, and these little boys don't have a male figure in their life. So you're choosing to be the disciplinarian, but these are the same men who have created single mothers. It's like the whole entire thing is vexing to me, where it's like, I just don't understand.
And here's another thing that works on my nerves, and I just want to say this because I feel like this adds to what you're talking about. It's perceiving emotion, talking about emotion as weakness. Having emotion, you know, oh, you're not supposed to. No, we are supposed to have emotions. But I'm gonna tell you what I find weak. I find it weak when people can't control said emotions, specifically your anger, specifically your ego. And I think, and it's so funny because I don't know if y'all know about Miss Bondy TV here on YouTube, but she has a child, an autistic daughter. And I watch her videos just because I'm curious, you know, how she handles it. And she said in this video I recently watched about how she has to take her ego out of it, as which she has learned as a kid growing up. You think things are disrespect when really it's a child that doesn't know how to navigate something, and it requires patience, and it requires love. It requires you to think about, okay, I need to not react in this way because my child doesn't understand it this way, just because I understand it this way. Just like if a baby gets upset, they hit you. It's a baby. You don't haul off and punch a baby because, the baby did something that makes you upset. And I feel like at a certain point, parents forget that their kids are still kids. Because I can remember moments where I felt like my people was totally fucking overreacting to something. And they have these angry responses that have now created anxiety inside of me. You know what I'm saying? Because they don't know how to control their anger in the moment of being upset. And one of the things they had to learn, my dad specifically, was he needed to calm down first and then come back at me, because I didn't need all of that. I'm not a boy child. I wasn't like, as much as y'all may think it, I was not a disrespectful child. I might be smart aleck, but I wasn't playing with my daddy like that. You just don't play with Jerome like that. It's not safe. So I would always handle myself in a certain way as to not get beat. You know what I mean? But when I look back on it, it was way too many times where I got hands put on me for accidents, for mistakes, for misunderstandings, for things that children should not be physically reprimanded for. But because my daddy was mad at the, whatever the work environment is, being a black man in corporate America, low-key being a functioning alcoholic, trying to deal with that feeling, being a responsible party in your family, and for all the elderly people and then the people in your family that have issues, he was the responsible person for everybody. So I think he didn't know how to handle that all the time, and it showed up in anger. And then with your kids, instead of being patient with them, you get angry and they get the worst of you because they get you at the end of the day. They get you when you're tired. And I think, I'm not a parent, but I remember being a kid. And I just feel like that's something that I wish somebody would have said to my people. Like, just remember that your kids aren't seeing it the way you're seeing it. You may be annoyed in this moment, but your child is having this oblivious childlike moment. And you go at them with this anger in your moment. And now your kid is in her 30s having to go to therapy because she has anxiety issues and she's trying to stay off medication. So, do us all a favor and calm down before y'all deal with y'all kids.
I want to say something to one of the comments I saw that resonated very deeply with me. It's what up, Gigi? She said it was hard for me to finally speak up and admit depression and get on meds because in my Christian family they would say we couldn't be depressed and I was oppressed. I suffered in silence. Let me tell you something. I was raised in a Christian home as well. Okay, I was raised in a Christian home. I was raised that God can fix things. God can do this, which is very much true because, if you believe in God, then that, God is the answer. But I want everybody to sit and think. If God created people to find medicines for diabetes, for heart disease, for high blood pressure, for any type of physical health, why wouldn't he create people that specialize in the mind? So I want you guys to be open to that, okay? Just like how the way that you go to these doctors to take care of your bodies, it is okay to seek help for any mental issues because God had put them on this earth to specialize on helping you fix or whatever, or help you navigate through that. Okay, do not allow your religion to have you thinking that you don't need help outside of that. Some things require you to seek medication. You may seek different things. When I was going to therapy because of depression and anxiety, I didn't want to be on meds. So you know what I did? I went to another therapist to deal with breathing exercises. There's so many different types of therapies that's available to us. When I was having a panic attack, I learned how to breathe, how to calm myself down using breathing patterns from a breathing specialist, from a breathing therapist that taught me how to deal with things. So number one, don't ever feel bad about being on medication. Number two, don't ever feel bad for seeking out special types of therapies to get help for mental health. And never feel bad for seeking help for mental health. You need it. We all need help. God would not put people on this earth to just fix our bodies and not fix our minds or help us navigate through our minds. And I just had to say that. It just really resonated with me.
I just want to say really quickly, I'm sorry, is people understand that this is your life and no one else's. So people can have their opinions, but you have to do what is best for you and what is best for your mental health. Because if you allow other people to control how your thinking patterns and where you end up, if you end up in a place where there's no point of no return, there's nothing that they can do. So stop worrying about your mama, your daddy, whoever. If you need help, get the help that you need. I'm sorry, go ahead. My bad. I apologize.
Now, I was just going to say, as far as medication, that's probably the main reason I wanted to participate in this panel, because I feel like I take medication for depression and anxiety. I deal with both. And I feel I just started taking medication within the past 6 months. And I feel like it makes me a better parent, because dealing with depression, the way my doctor explained it to me, basically for me, it's kind of like the way I'm wired. Like it's more of a physical thing, like low levels of whatever you need to be happy. Like I physically have low levels of it. And so for me, even though, I didn't necessarily want to turn to medication because my mother, didn't want me to be on medication. She had been on medication like for anxiety most of her adult life. She was a single parent. And I feel like being a single parent, like all on her own, gave her anxiety. But for, her own reasons, she didn't want me on medication. So I didn't. But then, parenting, and I have 2 young kids, and I'm feeling like I'm not enjoying my kids as much as I should. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like I'm not the best parent. And I feel like I'm not enjoying parenthood as much as I should, and just period, not enjoying life as much as I should. And I feel like finally deciding for me, finally deciding to take medication and address that has helped me like tremendously. It's helped me be a better parent and a better person all around. In my opinion, it's helped me a lot.
If I can jump in here, I saw a comment in the chat. It was probably was a troll account, but be that as it may, they basically said like, "What's the point of discussing this? It's such a heavy topic." But topics like these are important to discuss because mental health is stigmatized in the Black community. How many of us have had the crazy uncle or the crazy cousin, and yet they're just crazy? There's no resolution. There's no support for them. They just, oh, that's your crazy cousin Lisa. Well, how did Lisa get that way? What's the treatment plan? Oftentimes in Black families, what do they tell you? You need to be strong. But they don't tell you what strength looks like. They don't tell you how to acquire that strength. They just tell you can't be weak. For me, I deal with anxiety disorder. I've dealt with it all of my life. But it really spiked when my father went into the hospital for undiagnosed spinal stenosis. And like one day he kind of rolled off my parents' bed and he was paralyzed. He's not paralyzed anymore. He went through surgeries, but he almost died. I watched my father on the ER table gasping for air, and all of that sent me through the roof. And had I not called and got a number to a therapist, I don't know if I would be sitting in front of you today. Mental health is very serious. You can go to the gym and work out, you can eat right, but if your mind is not right, everything else will fail. It is so important. Thank you to everyone on this panel, and thank you, Scotty, for gathering us, because this needs to be talked about. I think it's like 1 in 3 Black Americans will suffer with some form of mental health. And so if you don't talk about it, you don't remove the stigma. I grew up hearing my mom and my aunt say, my nerves are bad. But what does that mean? Their nerves is a symptom of their mental health. That's why this needs to be talked about. We talked about our parents and grandparents demonstrating anger or violence towards us because they had issues. But guess what they're told? You need to be strong. But what does that mean? So when the more we talk about it, the more we share our stories, which thank you to everyone for sharing them, because that is deep and that is personal and that may be reopening wounds. But the more you hear people talk about their experiences with mental health, the more it becomes normalized. And so if you guys are looking for assistance, help, you don't know where to find a therapist at, there's some resources there. So and you just go to Google, type in therapy for Black girls, and all of these websites I'm going to give you, you can type in your city, your state, and your zip code. Now, I promise you, pictures of Black therapists will pop up. Go get you one. My whole team of medical doctors are Black. The only person who's not Black is my ophthalmologist, and she's Persian. But that's besides the point. There's Black Therapist Rock, same thing. Enter your city, your state, and your zip code. There's therapyforblackmen.org. Never be ashamed, because this is real. Just like if your chest was hurting, wouldn't you go to the cardiologist? The answer is yes. If you feel yourself not being yourself, it is perfectly fine for you to go and seek help. You are not weak. You do not need to be ashamed. You should not be embarrassed. This is serious. Take your health, your mental health serious. You are not alone in this. So many people struggle with anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, especially in the society we are now, where we constantly see images of Black men and women and children being traumatized or having violence enacted upon us, being murdered. These are not normal images for us to constantly see. So please, if at any point you feel like, I don't know what's going on, I don't want to be here anymore, my thoughts are overwhelming me, that is the time for you to go and get help. And there shouldn't be any stigma attached to it, and do not feel bad about it.
All right, I'm gonna take this little, cut in to tell everybody I appreciate y'all. I enjoy hearing, what everybody had to say. I have got to go. But yes, y'all, please check in with yourself and see how you feeling, and make sure you're good above everybody, because you can't do nothing for nobody else if you're not good. Okay, thank you, Scotty, for asking me to come on. I love y'all, and I'll see y'all next time.
One thing I just wanted to add, and thank you, Contrary, for giving those resources. I just want to remind people, when they're going through therapy, that you might not find your therapist on that first therapist. You're going to probably go through multiple therapists. Same way you may go through multiple doctors for other, ailments. You will probably have to go through multiple therapists. So you find the one that fits you and your personality. We're very unique human beings. So to find the person that's going to mesh well with you, where you're going to feel vulnerable enough to open up about some of your traumas, you might have to go through multiple therapists. So just a quick reminder about that.
I want to go ahead, Nikki. Go ahead. I wanted to piggyback kind of off of what Contrary said, basically about therapy for Black girls. I've been using them. I totally recommend them. It's been a game changer for me, especially during the pandemic. Child, sometimes you can't pray everything away. So I just wanted to hop in here to talk to the Christians, or the religious people, because my kind of journey with depression is very similar to, I believe, what a lot of us who have grown up in the church or who have grown up in organized religion have dealt with. So for me, I believe a lot of millennials, especially Black millennials who grew up in the inner city, a lot of us have experienced great loss. Especially if you're like me. I'm an 80s baby, 90s kid. So I lost a lot of adults in my life in the 80s and 90s with no explanation. Just, adults that you love and care for, just deteriorating and disappearing, and nobody is saying anything. Like, I remember a time where I was going to a funeral every day as a kid, and there was like no explanation, because you're not going to talk about the uncle that passed away from AIDS, because then you have to get into a bigger conversation, and nobody wants to have that. Then I was somebody who dealt with my father being addicted to crack cocaine, and my life changed drastically, right? But again, nobody's talking about that. So I started experiencing a lot of darkness at that time. And I had a cousin who took their life. And for some reason, I don't know why, I think it was just because I felt like for some reason that she was free, I became obsessed with that, right? I became obsessed with wanting to get away like she was able to get away. My family became super religious around the time of like my preteen years. So I remember, going up a lot for prayer because I was feeling the darkness. One thing about depression is that for a lot of us, it starts with us when we're very young, and then it grows. So it learns us. It knows how we have fought it before, and things will happen differently, right? So things that I used to do wouldn't work anymore. The music wouldn't work anymore. The, food wouldn't work anymore. The things that I would do to substitute that pain all of a sudden didn't work anymore. So I needed to try something different. So here goes prayer. I grew up in a deliverance church. So there was a lot of praying the demons out, going up and getting hands touched on me, falling down, speaking in tongues, getting up, and I'm still depressed. I still feel sadness. I still don't want to be here. I don't know what to do. So what happens on top of that depression comes shame, because now you're not a good enough Christian for God to want to deliver you from what you're dealing with. What a lot, sorry, I never talked about this before. So what a lot of us tend to do is to internalize what we're dealing with, right? So we fake and we make it seem like everything is okay, because when we're not okay, we're demonically possessed, or God is, this is a good one, or God is trying to teach us, or God is punishing us. So that, dealing with all of that on top of already dealing with a mental break that you're having, just creates this kind of darkness that a lot of us cannot get out of. This pandemic for me really helped me out, specifically with therapy for Black girls, because I realized that there's nothing wrong with me feeling this way. There's nothing wrong with me not being okay. I prayed, God answered. He sent me to therapy for Black girls. So there's nothing wrong not being okay with your situation, especially when you are Black, because outside of our personal things that we deal with, we also have to deal with, especially as a Black woman, we have to deal with racism, we have to deal with sexism, we have to deal with misogyny within our community. So there's so many things that we already deal with as Black people that we don't need to keep on walking with crosses that are not for us to bear. So to all of my religious people, to all my people who have grew up in religion, it's okay to not be okay. There's nothing wrong with you. I don't care if you prayed, if you fasted, if you put the anointing oil on your heart or on your mind. You had the mothers of the church praying for you, and you still felt that way. It's okay, because sometimes the prayer just doesn't work in that moment. And that's okay. It's not that God isn't coming to save you. It's not that something is wrong with you. It's just that that medicine ain't the medicine for you. I encourage everybody to get help. I've lost people to this, people within my family. I've lost a lot of people within the church. I've almost lost myself because I felt like I was doing something wrong. And that is unfortunately what church teaches. So I encourage you all to not only get inspired from what people are sharing, but to also do the work today, because you're going to get to a point where you feel like, oh, that's all I needed. I got this panel. I found people like me. I'm good. You're not, because it's going to come up and it's going to be even stronger and it's going to be even darker. So I encourage you to do what you need to do. Like Bondy said before she left, you can't talk to your family a lot of times, especially if you have a religious family, because that is the training in the church, right? The training is, especially the Black church. You don't go outside because they don't know how we work, because we're Black and our minds are different. Get the help that you need, please. Suicide rates have risen within the Black community since this pandemic. It's risen within our children. Since 2016, Black kids from the ages of 11 to 16 have been committing suicide in large numbers, larger than white, Asian, Hispanic children. Black kids have been killing themselves. Obviously, what we're doing as a community, something ain't right. So we have to do what we have to do to save ourselves. So I encourage you all to get the help you need. I'm still dealing with it today. You know what I mean? It does sometimes. The therapy, it's not a quick fix. It's an investment in your life forever. So I just wanted to speak to the people, because I was, my Christian family, because I was like that as well. I felt so lost because the prayers just wasn't working. You don't know how many prayer lines I was in, how many bishops touched me, how many 40-day fasts that I was on, and then I got off the fast and I was still sad. Get the help that you need. I'd rather have you here on medication or have you here in therapy than you're gone, and the people that loved you and needed you are mourning your loss. So that's all I wanted to say, family.
Thank you for sharing that, Nikki. Thank you all for sharing everything. I know it's hard and we're all being very vulnerable right now. And sometimes some of these stories that we haven't shared at all, haven't even heard ourselves say it. Our emotions, I believe, are so important to acknowledge and to understand that they are real. And it is important that we have that relationship with our emotions to understand that We don't have to feel guilty about when prayer doesn't work. We don't have to feel ashamed because we can't get out of bed. We don't we want to acknowledge those feelings so that we can say, hey, I think it's time we need help. I think it's time I need help. Therapy, I go to I have my resources for therapy from Black girls too. My therapist is a Black woman, and I find that she is able to relate. We are able to speak AAVE to each other. It's not me trying to, or her trying to, oh, I don't know if I should say this or anything like that. I think a therapist who looks like you, who kind of falls in line with how you identify, if you are part of the LGBTQ community as well. It's so important because there's so many things that we deal with in our community. And I think one of the things that we all is the emotions, is getting in touch with our emotional self. I believe that a lot of us, the only relationship we have with an emotion is anger, right? Our parents, our grandparents discipline in anger. We respond to other people in an angry way. I think it's so important that sadness, and it's okay to feel sad, right? It's okay. And that's why I really wanted to be here to talk about our emotion and our emotional bodies and feeling our emotions and being able to connect to those and knowing that it's okay to feel sad. It's okay that you have anxiety. There are so many resources that we have access to. And as Black people, there's such a stigma around getting therapy. And by us talking about it, that is going to let another person know that it's okay that I go to a therapist. And you may not want to tell anybody at first, right? Because you might still have those feelings, but it's important to seek those out. It's also crucial to, if you need medication, to seek to get that, like Layla shared with us. Sometimes we just don't have the chemicals that can make us happy, and sometimes we need help. And we can't do everything. Strong Black women out there, I want to tell you that you don't have to put everything on your back. You don't have to carry the world on your back. You have to take care of you first. I always preach that. Take care of yourself first. Otherwise, you will not be able to care for your community, as we are the gatekeepers of our community. So it's important that we are in touch with our emotional body. When you're feeling a certain way, when you're feeling unregulated, that to seek help, talk to someone professionally. While it's okay to talk to each other, everybody doesn't have the skills to deal with the different things that we deal with. Every single one of us, how many is 8 up here? All of us have different stories. A lot of these things go back to childhood. A lot of the times we don't even understand that the way that we're operating in the world as adults came from how we were treated by our caregivers and our parents. And a lot of times what I've been working on in my therapy is healing the child, right? Healing the child who experienced these things where I felt like I didn't have anybody to talk to. I felt alone. I think the first time I had suicidal ideation, I was probably 17 years old. And it was the pray it away, and it's going to be okay, just pray. It was those type of things, or completely ignoring the mental health. I had the crazy cousins and the crazy uncles. And you realize that a lot of the way that we have been socialized to cope with these things is alcohol and drugs, right? We have that so much in our community that a lot of those people are self-medicating. Sex, shopping, drugs, alcohol, all of those things are kind of rooted in some type of mental illness. It might not be severe, but it might be very mild, right? You might not need medication or therapy, but sometimes we just need to take care of ourselves. Not sometimes, all the time. We need to take care of ourselves. when we're feeling like we can't do something, it's okay to step out. It's okay to step away. As content creators, it's okay to take a break, right? Okay. And it's okay to say, hey, I need that time. It's important. I just want everybody to understand that it's so important to have just a healthy relationship with all of the spectrum of our emotions that have been granted to us by the universe, right? We are complex human beings, and we cannot function in a world in a linear way, right? We are very complex. We're multidimensional. We have all of these identities that we fall under. And I just think it's important to be in touch with our emotions. I do want to send love to the Brooke Ashley. I know she was supposed to be here. I wanted to send love to her. She shared that her father passed. And, during this time, we just want to send her love. Scotty, we want to send you love as well. We know that you are having some things going on in your personal life, and we want to just send you the love. Okay. And it's important, and we have to be there for each other. We have to hold space for each other, give each other grace. Because a lot of the times we're dealing with things where shame and guilt is two of the main reasons why we don't seek help, right? Because we feel like, oh my God, somebody's going to say something about it, right? So it's important that we send love to each other, hold space for each other, and that we just have a real try to have a healthy relationship with our emotions. I was having a hard time talking, right? It's like a shocker, but I because everybody is sharing these emotions, and I tend to kind of absorb those things. But one of the things is that I've learned is healthy boundaries is important. Sometimes we get into different relationships with people where, they're sharing trauma, and a lot of us bond through trauma, right? So we have to find those healthy ways to bond with each other, show compassion, and give grace to one another. I think it's very important. So I just wanted to send love to you all. And I know this is a hard conversation. I know that some people might be triggered by this. I definitely want to say after the live is over that you take time to yourself. If you need that, drink some water, right? Sit with, if you need to listen to music, whatever ways that you can take care of yourself after this, make sure that you do that. It's so, so important. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. Sending love to all of you.
Can I say this real fast? I think, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You go ahead.
I wanted to say that when it comes to mental health, like acceptance, I want people to walk away with these two thoughts. It's when you come to the realization of acceptance that you need help, be kind to yourself and take your time. Okay? You need to make sure that you're not beating up yourself when you're like coming to the conclusion that, hey, I really do need help. I really do need to it's a very hard place to be there, because I've been there myself. When I got to that quiet place and it was dark and I was alone, and I came to the realization that I needed help, I had to learn to be easy on myself. Okay? I had to learn that if I was so unkind to myself during the time that I really was struggling.
Take your time.
Because of
Take a breath. That's right.
Because of the things that that I had in my mind on what I thought was okay. I was hard on myself because we were raised to be strong. We were raised to take lickings and keep on moving. I was so hard on myself during that time. Be kind to yourselves when you come to that place of acceptance. You know, it's very important that in the time when you know that you're having a hard time and you're having a hard time dealing with the fact that you know that you need help, it doesn't make it better if you beat up on yourself. So please, please be kind to yourselves and be gentle with yourselves, because nobody is gentle with us. In the Black community, we're not gentle with each other. So you need to make sure that you are at least being gentle to yourself during that time. That's the first thing. The second thing is, if you come to the realization that your family member needs help, don't push them into acceptance. Let them come to the realization of their own terms that they need help. You could be adding on to the stress of things. You need to be careful how you trying to constantly reach out to them, and the way that you think is right to deal with them, you may be mishandling them. So you have to be careful and learn boundaries when it comes to people that you know that needs help. If you're not the right person to talk to them, then keep your mouth shut and just be there for them. Know your place. Know when to walk away from things when you are trying to force something down somebody's throat. Do not do that. Show them a little bit of mercy, because you don't know what's going on in their minds. You don't know what's going on with them. You don't know what kind of torment they're going through. And you might be pushing them away from getting the help that they need. Make sure that you're treating people with kindness. One thing that we need to learn is to love one another, and to love ourselves when it comes to our mental health. And also, too, this is so important for me, because this is when I had the revelation when I was going through my childhood trauma. If somebody doesn't want to heal whatever is broken in your relationships, be okay with it. Heal yourself. You are not responsible for them taking ownership, but you're responsible for healing yourself. If somebody doesn't want to meet you halfway on your journey to healing, it's okay. Heal yourself and move on. Don't stay in a broken place because of somebody else. If your parent doesn't want to talk about, doesn't want to talk about the trauma that they put you through for beating you because they're having a bad day. They may beat you because they're unhappy with themselves, and now they're stuck with the kid. And I've been there. If your parent is in a place where they are not willing to accept any responsibility, if you have family members that have done things to you and they are not willing to have a conversation, find your own way to deal with it and heal with the help of therapy. Don't fight them during the times when you're fighting for yourselves. Listen, you got to fight like hell for yourself. Y'all got to fight like hell. You know, we were taught to be raised strong. Y'all got to fight like hell for your mental health. Yeah, you got to fight for yourself. But you also got to make sure that you're kind to yourself and know boundaries when you're seeing somebody hurting. Don't overstep your bounds, please. That's all I got to say.
I just want to say quickly two things. One, I really think you hit on something, Chocolate Beauty, when you talk about a lot of times, like we were talking about childhood trauma earlier, right? And a lot of times nobody apologized to you. You know what I mean? For whatever they did to you. And so it's a challenge moving on. And like you said, when you try to have conversations with that person, they might not want to talk to you. So it makes it a challenge, you know, getting past it when there was no apology, there's no type of anything there. So yeah, I definitely agree. Therapy can help with that. And Nikki, I just wanted to add on to what you were saying earlier, Nikki, about, how people, you try to pray it away. I'm also a Christian. I was raised in the church, and people feel like it's weak. Like if you can't get over this by prayer, like they look at you as being weak. You're not a strong Christian. It's a judgment there. And I just want to share, as an adult, I've learned. I remember, I think it was like a Bible study, and I remember learning that when you look at the miracles that Christ performed in the Bible, the miracles he performed were the supernatural part. But like, let's say when he raised Lazarus from the dead, he would ask the people to do the human part. Like when he said, roll the stone away, he would ask a person to do that. Everything that can be done by a person, he would ask the people to do, and then he would do the supernatural part. So I just want, people out there who look and say, well, I prayed about this and I prayed and I cried. I prayed and I cried and nothing changed. To me, when I realized, I prayed for certain things and it hasn't happened, like I feel like, Christ hasn't made it happen. Knowing that sometimes maybe it was because it's in my control. Like I can reach out, I can go to a doctor, I can, do different things. Like knowing that maybe it is within my control was empowering for me as an adult. And for me, I just want to share like practically what helps me, like I saw in the comments, someone was saying basically they don't know how to do this. Like they don't know how to get, I know you guys were recommended therapists, like, therapy for Black girls and stuff like that. But people are still commenting that they don't know how to do it. And I just want to say for me, what helps me in my mental health journey is making lists, like step-by-step lists. Like, girl, okay, you need to Google this and then find a doctor and then call them between the hours of 8 and 5, like make a list, like a practical steps of how to do this, like how to better yourself.
And Layla, maybe you can add to this, because I had a thought when we were talking about medication, because as I said before, the whole journey of finding a therapist, it may be multiple therapists that you're going to go through, but also the medication, don't think because your doctor gives you a medication that immediately you're going to feel better, or that there isn't going to be adjustments to that medication. Along with therapy, I know we talked about therapy multiple times. Yes, I'm a big advocate for therapy, psych major, all of that. But I'm also a big advocate of the self-talk, affirmations, meditation, all of those things along with therapy. For some people will be the ideal. For some people, all they need is meditation, or some people, they just need therapy. But there's a lot of other work. I hate to call it work because people, once they hear work, they're like, oh, another job. But at the end of the day, this self-work that you're doing is going to be gradual, just like watching a plant grow. You don't see it growing, but it is, and it's over time. And that's why I'm constantly, because we don't even notice it, that we're saying negative things to ourselves throughout the day. And that's why it's so important to start with affirmations every day and being regular with your affirmations. And if you don't know any affirmations, you can look them up. There are plenty of people on YouTube talking about it. I talk about it. It's important to make sure that you're saying positive things constantly to yourself, because you're saying just as negative things, probably more. Just my thought.
One of the things that I do a lot of breathing work. It's important because you feel it in your body when something is wrong. You definitely feel it. And I think meditation has helped me as well, along with therapy. It does help me return to center. That's what I tell my kids when they're going like this. I'm like, okay, let's return to center. It's time to get regulated, right? That helps me. I do definitely have a morning routine. Routine helps with our mental health, whether we like to believe it or not, but we get into a cycle of getting up in the morning. I do my affirmations in the morning. Even if you don't know, you can go on YouTube and type in morning affirmations, and you can just have it playing while you're getting ready in the morning, right? Because the truth is, everybody doesn't have access to therapy. The truth is that we don't all have FSA accounts to go and use, our pay for therapy. A lot of therapists only take cash or credit card. They don't take private insurance. So sometimes we don't have access to that. So our self-care is also important. knowing when you are feeling dysregulated, and you can feel it in your body, pausing, taking a breath when you're feeling like you're triggered or lit up. It's important. Routine is so important. I get up in the morning, I listen to my affirmations, even just putting my tea kettle on. Everything is a part of a routine, and it really helps me spend time with myself before I go out into the world. It helps me. Breathing also helps me just remind, like when Chocolate Beauty was talking, anybody talking, I don't know if you've noticed, I've been placing my hand over my heart because it helps me regulate myself and to feel the breath, right? The breath is life, right? And to remind ourselves that we are here, everything is okay, you know, and it's important. So if you don't have an AM or PM routine, try to figure out a way to get that done. Whatever you're doing in the morning, try to incorporate, even if they say if you don't have time to meditate, if you don't have 5 minutes to meditate, you need 2 hours, right? So 5 minutes, and that sometimes it's hard, right? Because you're thinking about everything, but all you need to do is just concentrate on your breath, breathing in, if you want to hold it, and then breathing out. That helps. Just sitting down and sitting with yourself in the morning, it can do a lot of good for you. You know, binaural beats, it's another thing. You can just Google it. There are different frequencies that help us regulate our emotional body, right? Because we have our mental health, but our emotional body is regulated through our central nervous system, through our spine. So it's important that breathing is important, right? So binaural beats helps with that. It kind of gives you a frequency to kind of regulate your emotional body. And it's just sounds. It's just sound baths on YouTube. There's a great source. I think it's Healing Vibrations on YouTube. He has a channel. It's visually beautiful. It sounds beautiful. And if you just lay in the bed and just listen to these sounds, singing bowls, it'll regulate you. It'll make you feel better. Because like I said, everybody doesn't have access to therapy. So there are different ways that you can take care of yourself and to get, you know, the help that you need, but self first, and show yourself grace. As Chocolate Beauty said, it's very important to be okay. You know, if you're triggered by something, to be like, okay, I'm triggered by something. It's okay. I don't have to feel guilty that I'm triggered, because sometimes we do the work and then something happens and we're like, oh my God, I feel like I'm back at step one. But it's okay. That's another thing. We have to be okay with failing and doing it again, and failing and doing it again. And sometimes it's just going to take that routine, right? Making lists, like LailahLynn, like she said, just making lists so that you can see everything that needs to happen. Writing affirmations on your mirror. Take a dry erase marker, write on your mirror in the bathroom to remind yourself, right? To love yourself. I love myself. I love you. You're okay. I forgive you, right? Just all of that. That really helps. I just wanted everybody to know that the emotional body, I cannot stress that enough, because you feel it, right? You feel that flight or fight, right? Breathe. That is going to return you to center. That's going to get you back. Pause and take a beat and be present, right? So I just wanted to share that.
And if I can add, while we're on the topic of self-care, as someone who is trying to become a reformed workaholic, please take your breaks, take your vacations, take your PTO. I don't care if you just want to sit on the couch and sleep all day. I know Bondy mentioned it earlier. Corporate America will chew you up and spit you out. And I have worked 80-hour weeks. I have worked Monday through Sunday in the office. And when it's time to discuss salary increases, what do they say? Well, we have a Starbucks gift card for you. You know, that's part of your mental health, is being able to remove yourself from your work environment. Because if it was up to them, they would have you working all the time, non-stop. So as many of us re-enter the workforce, or you're going back to your office, please remember that if you have time in vacation, it is essential that you take that time off. Do not feel bad for using your PTO or your vacation time or your sick time, because that's what you have worked hard for. And do not let jobs guilt you into taking your breaks, or your child is sick so you have to take off. Those things that's human nature. And I think we're getting to a point in society, or actually we're probably already there, especially with employers, where they want you to work 24/7, but they don't want to increase compensation and benefits. It is so important for your mental health that you leave work at work. I have a rule now: if it comes to me after 5, 6 p.m., I won't respond to it until I get into office the next day. Now, whenever I get into the office, whether it's 8 a.m., 9 a.m., or 10 a.m., that's when I'll respond to it. But it used to be I was a person that would respond to emails right away, do this right away. No, ma'am, no, sir. Please release yourself mentally from these companies, because if you don't, that will add on. I know, at least for me, that would add on to my anxiety. Please take your time. I don't care what it's for. I used to be a person where I would say, well, I'll just get my hair done on the weekend. No, I'm not. I'm going to take PTO and get my hair done on Tuesday. How about that? And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to enjoy my time off. I don't care if there's a deadline. Maybe if you hire more people, we wouldn't be working over like this, or we wouldn't have to spend long hours at the office or wherever. So I cannot stress, self-care is important. Please take your time off to rest, not only physically, but mentally.
I wanted to talk about,
Go ahead.
I just wanted to quickly talk about affirmations, because I know sometimes, we don't know affirmations, and you might not, when you're going through something, you might not feel like Googling an affirmation. One thing I've learned to do is counter the negative thought or the negative thing that I have said. Because, sometimes you get into it and you just start saying dumb things like you're stupid or you're ugly, and, just negative stuff that I have personally said about myself. I always counter it right away with the opposite. If I say that I'm dumb, I'm like, no, I am smart. I am intelligent. Sometimes I embellish. There ain't nobody smarter than me. I just counter that negative thought right away, because what happens with those negative things that we think or say about ourselves, if we don't attack it right away, it'll fester. And we might think it's a little thing, but it'll start to build, and you'll start to believe that. And eventually you'll start to look it and start to feel that way, and it'll consume you. So that's like what I wanted to say about affirmations. If you can't find one, just counter it with that. If you can't find a scripture, if you can't find a quote from one of your favorite songs, just counter the negative things that you are saying. And real quickly to creatives, because I believe that, all of us here are creatives. With creatives, a lot of us deal with depression and all kinds of physical and mental issues, because we are people who give out, right? We are people who give out, and because we like to make other people feel well, sometimes we give out until we are completely depleted and keep on going until there's nothing else, where we're running on empty. So creatives who are like people who wear their hearts on their sleeve, are very open, because we are giving you the human experience. We're relating to you. We're opening up ourselves to you. Creatives, if you are here, creatives on this panel, take time for yourself. Even if you feel like you're doing okay, still check in, because we just give out so much. And because we love to make other people feel good, because that makes us feel good, we don't realize that we're running on empty. So take care of yourselves.
I just wanted to share an app, the Balance app. I use it for sleep, to wind me down. It has a timer. It has this it has a male or female voice, whatever you want. I find the male voice more calming, but he counts you down to sleep, and it's very relaxing. You may have a rough day or anything like that, but they also have meditation. So if you do not know how to meditate, you can use this as a guide. It will guide you. Guided meditations really help. And you can start off 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. You will see such a difference in how you respond to things that you are triggered by when you just learn how to meditate, because what it comes down to is breathing. So the Balance app is really good for that. The My Life app as well. That's something that you can put on your phone and just set it. And they have free, because sometimes they'll tell you, you have to pay after so, but they have a lot of free tools inside of this particular app. Different plans, sleep cycles, eating, couples, creativity, energizing, frustration. So it'll guide you. So however way that you're feeling, the meditation will be a guide and it'll be specific to that guide, to however you're feeling. So I just wanted to share that, some apps, since we're all like on our phones and stuff all the time. So.
I know that I've been in and out of, being seen. I've been in and out because I've been um getting a whole lot up here. I'm not, which is surprising to me because I'm not the most emotional person in the world. I don't really show my feelings like that. I don't write often. I hold a lot of things in. I don't really talk about my feelings. And I don't know if it has a lot to do with the fact that I'm currently grieving at this moment. My uncle's funeral was just, I don't know what it is about this. I don't know if it's because of the fact that my uncle passed right here in my house. So I think that has a lot to do with it. And I was the last person to speak to him before he passed. So I think that's probably what it is. I don't know. I don't know, but I think that's what it is. But a lot of the times, it's a lot of stuff that I've actually discussed up here that I really haven't like discussed. There's some things that I've talked about before, and there's some things that I've never shared. And oh Jesus, I don't want to start. I don't want the waterworks to start again. It's just I don't know. But I did say before I hope I don't get triggered, or I hope I don't get all in my bag. But it happened anyway. It happened anyway. But yeah, for the most part, I think my uncle's passing in this conversation is me breaking because, like I said, I don't show emotion a lot. I don't at all. And a lot of the times, if I do get emotional, I do it by myself. As a child, that's all I ever did was cry. As a child, all the time as a child because of the things that were happening to me. As an adult, I got a little hardened as an adult because that's all I did was cry. So now when other people cry, I don't know how to deal with it. It's uncomfortable. Emotions are uncomfortable for me. So from emotions from another person is uncomfortable for me. Emotions from myself is uncomfortable for me, which is I get to me it's kind of odd because I was an emotional child. And I think a lot of the times, I think the reason why I became so hard is because I was told that, you as a man and people tell you that you're not supposed to cry. Or crying is a sign of weakness, or it's this, it's that. Um, so after all that crying that I did, it felt as though I cried enough. So I really don't have any tears. But over the week that all I've done is cry, which is why I took a 5 day break from YouTube itself. I tried to do content. I tried, but I couldn't do it. And I remember Erica writing on my comments, um, telling me that it's okay for me to take my time, to take some time out for myself. You know what I mean? Because a lot of the times I don't think about myself. I've always thought about other people. I'm always um I'm I'm the same that Contrary was talking about as far as the workaholic. I work all the time. I work 40 hours a week and I do this every day. So a lot of the times I'm mentally exhausted a lot, especially the last 2 months with my uncle and him coming home from Pennsylvania and us knowing that he only had a limited amount of time on this earth with us and him doing his hospice from here and all of this other stuff. You know, that took a toll on me, but I didn't talk about it. I kept it to myself a lot. And I think this is where all this emotion that I'm feeling is from. A lot of the things that I've suppressed, is coming out, I guess, because we're in a group setting and we're all talking about different traumas, and some of the traumas that you guys have discussed relate to some of it. And it's I think a lot of the times I don't, and y'all, I know y'all probably gonna say don't say that, don't say that, it's not true. But for so many years no one cares. So that's why I don't show emotion. That's why I don't share anything. That's why I don't, because I've always been made to feel like no one cares what I'm dealing with. What I care is irrelevant. What I'm dealing with is important. Everybody else's emotions, everybody else's situations are way more important than myself. Or that is why I wanted to commit suicide 2 years ago, because I felt as though if I wasn't there, no one would notice. If I wasn't here, no one would even care if I was gone, because they. So that has always been a mindset for me. I've always felt that nobody cared. So when you get to and your voice and you meet all these different people like yourselves, or the different people that watch and love you for what you do and what you say, or just love you for who you are, it's a different feeling. You know what I mean? You know, when my uncle passed away, when most of you guys, reached out to me, or not really most of you, all of you guys up here reached out to me or said whatever, it felt good to know that someone cared, because I always feel that no one does. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm weird that I don't really share a lot. I don't show a lot of emotion at all. But tonight is one of those nights where I just let it all out tonight. I just had to say that because I've been quiet for most of the time, and yeah, let y'all know that. Thank y'all for being in the private chat and just giving me your virtual hugs and stuff like that, because it's definitely needed at this moment. So I just wanted to say that.
Scott, did you say you do affirmations or you don't?
I don't.
No.
I've never done it.
So I think it
Hmm.
would be perfect for you. Like Nikki was saying, how you make an affirmation that's the opposite of what you're thinking. So I think it would be perfect for you. An affirmation that would be perfect would be like, everybody cares about me. You know what I mean? I'm Mr. Still Standing. Like everybody cares about me. Some type of affirmation like that would be good for you.
Yeah, it would be.
It's
That's a good
important. I
idea.
think when you speak the words, I mean, and all of our religious folks, as we know in our culture, that the power is in your words and in your tongue, and you know it. And when we say these things, that's why, I always speak about how we speak about ourselves, over how we speak over ourselves, right? The negative self-talk, the guilt, the shame. It's important to say positive things about ourselves. Sometimes it might feel corny, right? You're in the mirror like, what? But it after a while, it's just something that it resonates in your body, and your words carry vibration. So it will actually come back. And the things like what Layla said to Scotty to say, you will see people actually opening up, and you being feeling great to open up to a person because someone actually is showing you that they cared. And it was because of the affirmation that you sent that vibration out and it came back to you. So it's important. We do have, our words are very powerful, and we all have been taught that in the foundation of all of our religions, right? That our words are powerful. So it's important. Speak positivity over yourself, write it down. I love saying something opposite of how you're feeling. Like, I think it's great. And it's important that we do understand that there's power in our words. So.
And writing them down.
Yes.
I want to encourage everybody who is going through anxiety, depression, and different types of things, and it has blocked you from being a creative individual. One thing that I know about creatives is that creatives constantly have a fight. Creative people are usually the most stressed, the most angst, have the most anxiety, suffer from depression, suffer from all types of things. But that's what makes you different, because despite it all, you still find a way to create and bring light to the world. I encourage you to pick up your pen. I have books all around me. I am constantly writing. I don't know if I read it or if somebody said it. Journaling is something that will help you. Sometimes depression will allow you, will steal away your creative thoughts and your creative ideas. Yes, we do need to take time off, like Contra Canary said. Yes, NikkiStar, when she said that words of affirmations is very powerful. And we do have a tendency to give out more than what we're getting in, okay? Because we understand as creatives that we have something important to give to the world, okay? We know how important it is to find a way to, as an escape for other people. But if you find yourself in a situation where this depression and anxiety has allowed you not to create, allowed you not to put out whatever greatness you have in you, pick up your pen. Pick up your pen and start writing. You'll be surprised how therapeutic it is. When you are a creator, you got so much in you. Like, I told myself, when I came to the realization, you know what, I'm going to get in front of this camera and speak, because I didn't believe in a million years that anybody would want to listen to me speak, especially from a child who stopped speaking from a young age, who was told that they will never amount to anything. And the most powerful tool I have is my voice. And people listen. It's so shocking to me. But once I got really low. I got really low in December. I had this YouTube channel for a while, and I lost everything in December. I lost my job. I thought that I lost my dreams. I thought I lost my aspirations. I went into my room and I turned off all the lights, and I was in complete darkness. I shaded my windows for like 7 days. And I came to the realization that I put down my pen to work for other people, like Contra Canary was saying. I put down my ideas because I allowed working and putting so much into building a business. When people like us are meant to speak to the millions, we're meant to speak to the masses. This type of stuff, us coming together and talking on this panel and speaking about something that matters, is needed. It's necessary. And guess what? We wouldn't be here if we didn't allow our creativity to flow through us, for us to build relationships with other content creators, to build relationships with other people. So when I decided, I'm like, you know what? The reason why I'm so depressed, and depression is far more worse than it's ever been, because I crashed and burned on somebody else's terms. I didn't crash and burn on my own terms. See, Don't ever allow yourself to be dictated by anybody else's terms but your own. But your own. Okay, it's very important that you understand that that comes with mental health. Okay, sometimes a strong no, when you're so used to saying yes, it will make a difference in your life. Sometimes you got to say no to keep your sanity. Sometimes you got to say no to your family. Sometimes you got to say no to your friends. Sometimes you don't. Listen, I haven't called people in months. I haven't. Somebody called me today and was like, I haven't seen you in a year. And I was like, yeah, you haven't. Because I've been taking that time out to take care of myself. I give so much, and I give and I give and I give, and that's with all kinds of creators. We just give everything. But I do not want anybody to lose sight of themselves through other people. Stop putting your problems in the oven. Okay, that's what we do. Okay, stop putting it in the back burner. Stop trying to fulfill other people's dreams and not fulfill yours. You know how crazy that drives a creative person? I'm talking to all my creatives. I don't care if you're a musician, if you are a dancer. I don't care if you are anything of innovation, creativity. Okay, if you're a creative individual, you have to sometimes let that out, and that be a part of your therapy too. Pick up your pen. Pick up your dream. I picked it up, and my YouTube is still slowly growing, but it's growing. My TikTok, I don't even know what the heck is going on in TikTok and why my TikTok is blowing up like the way it is. But it is. People keep on coming to my platform because one thing I try to, I want people to understand that they have support regardless of what you're going through. You come to me, you come to Chocolate Beauty, you're going to have support. You're going to have people who's going to promote your business, all of those things, because far too long, a lot of people don't allow other people to walk through the door. Open the door for somebody else. I know how hard it is. But I'm saying all of this. I'm not trying to get sidetracked, but I want y'all to pick up your pens again. It can be part of your therapy. It can be. Sometimes you're walking around depressed because you left what you were meant to do. You leave the world full. You should be, if you're a creative person or just a person in general, you should be leaving this earth empty. Put out everything that's within you. Whatever you're supposed to put in the universe, put it out there. Get help. Get treatment and pick up your pen. I love y'all. I just had to say this. I had to. Too often we see creative people who are meant to do great things just kind of go in dark and go into the night. We don't even know what happened to them. And their greatness is not fulfilled until 20 years later. Pick up your pen.
That
Get
is
help.
so true.
I'm
And
sorry. Go
that
ahead.
resonates. No, that is so true. And that resonates with me so much at this moment. And I'm going to say why. I know we're about to run into the time limit right quick. So I'm going to say this. In October, I would be on YouTube for 11 years. And um, I didn't. My channel has been had been a slow ass moving channel for most of those 11 years, and it was mainly because I allowed myself to be consumed with things that happened in my life, where it was family issues, whether it be some relationship issues, whether it just be issues, period, where it took me away from doing what I love to do. And then there would be times where I become inconsistent, or I did enough just to get by, or I didn't allow myself to put in much into what I'm doing. I didn't really see my channel growing until last year. And that was only because When I was going through it, I was going through, as I've mentioned before, in November of 2018, me and my family became homeless. And we lived out of a hotel from November to February of last year. So it was 3 months we lived in a hotel, and I was probably in the darkest place of my life. I probably was the most suicidal. That's when I was the most angry, the most emotional, the most pessimistic. But one of my good friends, if y'all been following me for many, many years, y'all know that Jamar 84 is one of my good friends, one of my best friends in real life and on here. Um, he and I came together and we was talking. He was there with me throughout that whole situation. And we both made a pact that we would come together and try to focus on our content because that's what made we worked regular jobs like everybody else, but that wasn't fulfilling us. All it was doing was putting money in our pocket, but that was it. It wasn't like we was excited to do it. I like to run my mouth, show off my personality, and this is what my YouTube is about. And the moment that I came out of that dark spot, I went head first into this. And once I went head first into this, that's when I saw the growth. And it took me 10 years to get there. Just like Chocolate Beauty said, sometimes it takes people many, many years to grow because they allow themselves and the things that are going on around them to mess up their lives or mess up their thought process or make them feel inferior or inadequate. And a lot of the times I felt inadequate or inferior to the people that I looked up to. So I would think, oh, ain't nobody paying attention to little old me. I'm not blah blah blah. Blah. And realize who I had watching me, like LailahLynn, for example. She got more subscribers than all of us up here, and I had no idea that she even knew who the hell my face was until
I be
last
lurking.
year.
Same.
So
I actually watch all of
yeah.
y'all.
Same.
I watch all of y'all. I just be lurking. I just watch y'all. We watch y'all on the TV, so I don't really comment. But yeah, I be watching
Same.
y'all.
Same.
See, that was the crazy thing about it. So expand on what Chocolate Beauty had to say because I know that I spent 10 feeling inadequate, and once I stopped feeling inadequate and really saw what the special thing that I had within myself and what I'm doing, then I started to see the results. Sometimes you do go through slumps on YouTube where you slow down for a minute, but then you fly right back up again. It happens. Sometimes you just got to accept that. It happens sometimes. But long as you continue to try, you'll always be willing to watch you. I know. I know. I know. So I just had to say that. We're at the 2 hour mark now. So before we go, I just want to, I'm going to let you guys say y'all closing things, but I just want to tell you guys that I really appreciate you guys for even agreeing to doing this. I appreciate you guys for being very transparent and telling your stories, giving advice, giving pointers. All of that stuff is really appreciated. Y'all made me cry, but it's okay. But I appreciate it. I know everybody that's watching this as well. And to the person that's in the chat that asked if they could share the video, yes, of course. I beg please share my videos every damn time I make one, so you can share it. But that's all I gotta say. So the rest of you guys can give me your closing remarks, and then we'll be up out of here.
Well, I just wanted to say real quick. Somebody in the comments has talked about hormones, like check your hormones if you're feeling depressed. And I also want to mention this. Like I said, I got on medication to help my depression, but I also got off birth control. And it really helped me so much getting off hormonal birth control. So I just want to share that if you're going through it as a woman and you're on birth control, maybe think about, some other alternatives to your birth control. That's it.
I just want to say in closing that thank you guys all for being so vulnerable. Everyone out there, try meditation, breathing exercises, affirmations, Take care of yourself. Be in tune with yourself. Meditation will help with that. If it's just 5 minutes a day, just start off there. I thank all of you for allowing me to share, because this is a kind of vulnerable space, right? We all have share that we're not used to sharing and crying and things like that. And part of that is other people, in us sharing, other people know that they're not alone, and none of us are alone. And that's why I always tell to take care of each other and just hold space for each other, check on each other. If you don't see someone, online for a while, check on them and, find out if they're okay. You don't have to be the therapist, but, just check in and say, hey, is everything okay? So that's very important. I just want to thank you guys again for allowing this space, and Scotty, I know that it's been difficult for you to even just to continue to go as scheduled with this live. Thank you for that. And I appreciate all of you sharing your stories, and take care of each other.
Thank you guys. Because I have to say, I got a lot more from this panel for myself than hopefully that I could even give. But I just wanted to, something that was running through my mind towards the end is that as content creators, we see a lot of comments. I just want to remind people, and we say this all the time, that you never know what someone's going through, especially us who put ourselves out there on a daily basis, that be mindful of what you're commenting. But also for us content creators, there are probably thousands more comments that are positive and that are uplifting. Focus on those and don't let that one negative comment bring you down or ruin your day or stop you from picking up a pen, as Chocolate reminded us.
Or responding. Like, look, let me tell you one motherfucking thing.
That's therapy right there, though. That's therapy.
Right. You might need to cuss their ass out.
Whatever's going to make you feel better. Whatever's going to make you feel better in that moment. And as Erica was saying, again, meditation, breathing, affirmations, all of it. It might be one thing that helps you. It might be all of it that will help you. And they come in all different forms. Don't believe that, it's only one type of meditation or it's only one type of therapy. Try them all, because I'm telling you, I've been through a journey of trying all different kinds of things, and I finally found what fits for me. And I'm still trying out new things that I'm adding on to my spiritual journey, my self-care. So just keep all of that in mind, and don't give up on yourself, because just the same way that you fight for everyone else, you have to start fighting for yourself. Thank you all. Thank you, Scotty, for allowing me to be part of this, and thank you for all of you that gave so much to me in this moment. I appreciate you so much.
Hey, family. Two quick things before we get out of here. I don't know if he said this, but it's helped me tremendously. One of my favorite quotes from Frederick Douglass, not sure if he said it, but it says, I prayed for 20 years, but received no answer until I prayed with my legs. So sometimes a lot of us are waiting for something to happen to get up out of what we're in, whether it be mentally, physically, spiritually, whatever. Sometimes you just got to take that step, and it's just Googling a therapist or, reaching out and saying, I'm not okay. So sometimes you just have to take that extra step to make sure that we are okay. And I did see somebody in a comment talk about a person that they had an issue with, that they needed that to fix their trauma. To that, I say, one of the people who was responsible for something extremely traumatic in my life passed away recently, and I never was able to get what I thought I needed from them. I was never able to get that closure or have that conversation. There have been times that we have tried, but there was always so much rejection. And when they passed away, I felt so defeated. And I thought that with them being gone, I'll never be okay. I'll never be okay with that. That is a lie, right? Whatever me and that person had, that person is gone. That situation is gone. The trauma may still be there, but now it's time for me to start praying with my legs and do the work. So sometimes you'll never get an apology. You'll never get that closure. You'll never get the thing that you think that it is that you need to be healed from that situation. So you have to figure out what you need to do for you on your end to be healed. In closing, Thank you so much, Scotty. I love you. I appreciate this. I was very nervous when you asked me because, church kid, this is stuff we don't talk about. And as I was speaking, a lot of the, fear and shame was coming up. And listen, this is my own little deliverance service. So I thank you so much for being the vessel to do that for me. And I just thank everybody here, everybody in the comments. This is a much needed conversation, and it was a huge blessing to me. I pray that it was a huge blessing to you all as well. Love you, family. We're going to do what? We're going to get through this. Thank you all so much.
Okay, everybody, I am drained. I am emotionally and mentally drained, but it was for me, I felt like I did what I was supposed to do. I was honest with you guys. I was transparent. And this is what we need, is transparency. I want you guys to walk away knowing that there is hope and that you're not alone. This journey of mental health is not an easy one. Being able to reconcile your feelings with the fact that you may need some help is not easy. It's not an easy road. I have to say thank you to Scotty, and I commend you. I do not deal with death very well because of what I've experienced as a child. I commend you for still pulling up your bootstraps and getting through this and doing it for somebody else, because at the end of the day, despite your pain, because what you're going through is not above anybody. You're going through something traumatic. I have to say kudos to you, because it's not easy to just say, okay, despite how the way I feel, I still need to help people and have this conversation. I still want to bring this panel together to get the job done. So I commend you for pushing past the way you feel, even though you felt like you wasn't here, you was crying a lot. It's okay. Number one, we're here. We're praying for you. We're going to love on you as much as we can. It's not easy. Death is not an easy thing to go through. Brooke, Ashley, I'm praying for you as well. We're praying for your family. Losing a parent is one of the hardest things to go through. And losing an uncle and then taking care of them on their dying day is something that is very hard too. So I commend you for pushing through this and allowing us to do this. This panel is awesome. I appreciate you taking the time out to invite me again, my crazy self again, to this panel again. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thank you for being patient with me, everybody. I know that sometimes I get lost and I just get emotional. That's how the way I am. I care. And I want...
Don't apologize.
But I want you guys to get help. I want you to see that you're not alone, and it's okay to go through this. It's okay. You're going to get through this. You will get on the other side. Onto the other side. There is pain during your walk. There's no such thing as not going through growing pains. It's like going through puberty. Things are changing. Your mind is changing. You got to understand that when you go through therapy, it's just not an emotional change. It's a mental change. It's like reforming your mind in the way that you think and the way that you look at things. It's a lot of bruising, and it's okay. You will get on the other side. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody. Thank you to Scotty for inviting me.
No problem.
Hi, everyone. I'll keep this short and sweet, but first of all, thank you, Scotty. It took an act of bravery and courage for you to host this panel tonight, even though you were going through your own thing. So much love to you. I'm sending you virtual comfort and virtual hugs and kisses and love to you. I'll keep you and your family in my prayers. And thank you to the panel, because we really shared some very deep and traumatic experiences that have occurred in our lives. And that takes an act of courage and bravery to do it. So especially in our community. So a theme that I want everyone to walk away with, and I think Queen Diva Erica said it, as well as Queen Chocolate Beauty, grant yourselves grace and mercy. We often talk about forgiveness and forgiving others, but really and truly, give yourself the space to forgive yourself and extend your own self that mercy and grace, because we all need it, regardless as to what happened in the past or what may happen in the future. Life is a bunch of ebbs and flows, ups and downs, hills and valleys. And it's about evolution and growing and things. You'll have great times and you'll have not so great times. But please, in all of those times, please, please, please forgive yourself and extend yourself grace and mercy always. Thank you, Scotty, again. I appreciate it. Much love to you all.
All right, and I think that is it for everybody. As I said, it took a lot for me to continue on with this, dealing with my uncle's passing, and that everything has only been it's been today. Maybe everything has changed, but it took a lot out of me to do this. I didn't do it, but I did feel like it needed to happen. You know, I came up with this idea like weeks before he passed, and I think that regardless of me grieving or whatever it is that's going on with me, um, somebody else needed to be healed, or somebody else needed to have a little understanding outside of me. So, once again, thank you, Country or Canary, Chocolate Beauty, NikkiStar, Kempire, Erica Dinero, LailahLynn, Yarrell, and also Bondy Blue as well. Thank you for everybody that participated. Shouts out to the Brooke Ashley. She did talk to me when we first to do this panel. Our father was sick or something like that. She had already told me about it, and I kept that to myself. You know what I'm saying? You know, just to respect her. But all love to her as well, because she lost her father. So I never lost a parent, but I know how it feels to lose someone that's very close to you. So I definitely understand. Up to the Brooke Ashley, and we're signing off. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Thank you for the super chat. I saw some super chats in it as well, and hopefully the same people will be willing to do anything else I ask them to do in the future. I would hope so, and well, ain't no hope, so I know they'll do it. Being said though, thanks to everybody here. We're signing out. Thank you guys.